And I have to ask, because there's that highly anticipated battle, if you will, between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, Twitter versus Threads. Are you on Threads, and how do you see this battle really playing out?
I have joined Threads. They've gotten a lot of subscription, and that is a real battle. But the task ahead for Threads is to get a lot more usage. And, Mark Zuckerberg knows social just about as well as anybody else on the planet. So I'm sure he's worrying about how to get more usage, more interaction, and it'll be an interesting battle. So I do think it's a large battle. I think the world will be better off if there's both Threads and Twitter, but we'll see.
Well, yes, indeed. We'll have to see how things pan out on that front. But wanted to understand from you, do you chase the idea or the entrepreneur? Do you think it's critical to have a mix of both, or would you be betting more or tilting more towards one side?
Well, between those two, the entrepreneur is more important. You have to have a great entrepreneur, and you have to have large, interesting markets and MVP small starting point. Because you can't pursue a large idea from day one, but you can have a large idea vision from day one and pursue a narrow path. So an entrepreneur who understands that is more important than being in the right market, but both are important. I also give the following advice to entrepreneurs. Think about it as starting a company that's large impact is like climbing Mount Everest. Nobody went to the top of Mount Everest in one go. You go to base camp, then you go to camp 1, then you go to camp 2, camp 3. But you're trying to get to the top of Mount Everest and you think about it day 1. You can get to another peak at the same level or higher than base camp that doesn't lead to the peak of Everest. So it's very important to even pick suboptimal targets in revenue or other ways early on, so it leads to a path in the top of Mount Everest. There's many other peaks around base camp that are higher than 14,000 feet. And if you go there, you'll be stranded in the local maxima at a dead end. You'll not get to Mount Everest. So it's clever, but that's what you rely on a good entrepreneur to do and think about, and build the journey to building a large company from day 1, build the right team from day 1 that helps you get to the top of Mount Everest. Because if you start off without the right help, you're not going to get there. And if you have the wrong investors and chase revenue, you might end up mountain types not as ambitious as Mount Everest.
That is true. And given the fact that you've gone on record to say you need to have the optimism to go after the outliers, tell us, where is the next outlier then?
Look, when we invested in OpenAI 4 or 5 years ago, it was a very controversial kind of area. What would AI capability be in 4 or 5 years? How large an impact could it have? Would Google own the market? There was lots of risk. But that's where you have to make intelligent guesses and forecast the future. I mentioned we are doing public transit earlier. It'd be such a good idea for India. This kind of public transit is 10 times cheaper than light rail and much more responsive and better in every way. So, but when I talk to most people, they wouldn't say public transit is something startups can do. But we've already won a few contracts, including in San Jose, to build a public transit system. Take Impossible Foods. Plant proteins is a massive area and could be innovated in India, but isn't generally being done. So that's another example. So lots and lots of areas, lots and lots of opportunity. Just takes great entrepreneurs to think, to imagine the possible and then try and make it happen and not be afraid of failure. People worry too much about failure, not enough about trying something ambitious that they'll be proud of the rest of their lives.